What is really going on here? You're never going to find out from the media. They're a part of the problem.
Fix the Media, an independent media solidarity production, with your host, Peter Klein.
Soon you will be 16. I think you know what I mean. Don't tell your mama, your daddy, your mama. Start the projection machine. Everyone's gone to the movies. Now we can bang at last. Everyone's gone to the movies. Now we can bang at last. Does it sound weird for a 48-year-old to be talking about matters of the life of 16-year-old girls? It does? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say something wrong? Ugh, I said something wrong. People are idiots. Well, not all of them, but you know. It's like a 90-10 rule or something, right? And maybe that's what this show should be about, how people are idiots. Or not about that, but how about this? How about the effect that it has on the world, like good people? How smart, intelligent, good people doing good things are fooled into thinking that some group of people will be a representation of the highest quality and that 10% of that class. And I think it applies to everything. Every group has a 90-10 rule where 90% of every group are jerks and idiots, right? And I mean, that's fair. It doesn't matter if it's the Catholic Church, if it's people into Ravi Shankar. So George Harrison would have been in the 10%. You know what I'm saying? Welcome to our third episode, episode 3 of Fix the Media. My name is Peter Klein, and thank you for joining us. This is going to be a great show. I don't have any guests today. It doesn't matter because we have an important topic. It doesn't need any guests to convey. And we only have 1 hour in which to get across these points, and we got to stay on target. We have a plan here. We have to fix the media. And so we don't really have a whole lot of time. So episode 3, hey, come on. We're down the line here. What have we done? What have we accomplished? We have to have some metrics here. This has to be measurable. What's our ROI? Let's start doing some corporate talk here, people. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, thanks again. This is an independent media solidarity production, IMS, which can be found at mediasolidarity.com. The Fix the Media website is nearly complete. You might hear that there's some explosive thunder going on outside. No lightning. I mean, after all, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. I'm actually doing this on the East Coast. I'm in Lexington, Kentucky, or you may know it as Kentuckiana. Kentuckiana is an interesting place. It includes Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. And yet they call it Kentuckiana. They don't even mention Ohio. I guess maybe it would sound kind of weird if you try to fix Ohio in there. Anyway. Oh, hi, Kentuckiana. How's that? So, this relates to what I was doing earlier, and that was I was listening to a podcast on the Awake Radio Network, a program called The Opperman Report by Ed Opperman. And Ed Opperman is someone I respect a great deal. You have to listen to this podcast. It's amazing. You know, when he has a guest, you won't find this type of thing, or when he's interviewing the guest, you won't find him doing this. When he's not, he's really a lot of times he's giving these very personal anecdotes, these stories, and it comes across as a very interesting, it's very compelling. I just wish I could do as good a job as he can do at conveying thoughts, ideas, telling stories. A lot of it is stories from his life, and it's compelling. And I feel bad in a way because I think he's misguided on something, and that is that this, as I've been telling everyone, the only hope we have is independent media when it comes to getting the news and information and entertainment as well. But Certainly the news, right? At this point in time, you can't get the news in any mainstream media source. And even on the borderline, you can't. But see, what Ed Opperman, I think, has been finding is that he's been disgusted by a lot of the material being put out by the various social media platforms like YouTube and others, but certainly YouTube in particular. And my theory is, and so he's ranting a bit about it. It's upsetting to him because, he has to deal with it too. He'll describe a story in which he'll be getting calls from people in the morning, and on the way out of the door, he's got a million things to do, and he's on the phone talking to some guy who's telling him about this, that, and the other, and they're spying on him, and the Ruskies, and the Illuminati, and the monkeys come down, and the whole thing, and he has to deal with it, and so he's trying to be polite, but at the same time, he's asking, what can I do for you? What specifically would you need? And they can't even do that. So these people are not only poor communicators, but they're actually putting information out a lot of times on YouTube and expecting us to be able, it's like doom and gloom. Everybody run and hide. You're going to die. That's pretty much the message of a lot of this material. And it's ridiculous. I say ridiculous because it is. And we can talk about why that's ridiculous, but this program is not really designed, it's not really geared toward that 90% of jerks and idiots. It's for that 10% of people who are other. You're not a jerk, you're not an idiot. It doesn't mean you're, some kind of expert or you're brilliant or any of that. It's just you're not in that class of jerk or idiot, which is a full 90%. And he gives, he does such a great job of these podcasts. He gives, the way he tells these stories, it's really compelling and interesting. I just wish I could do the same kind of thing. I was thinking the other day about how I, just out of the blue, one of these personal anecdotes, kind of a observational humor thing. He does observational humor that's great. Like in mine I was thinking about dentists and how dentists are really great at distracting you. You'll be in the chair and they'll say, so you like the Three Stooges, eh? Which one you like the best? And while they're asking, they're down beneath eye level, rigging up what is like a 15-inch needle. And then you'll say, oh, I kind of like curly because as they they swoop and come from below and slam. That 15-inch needle is going through your brain and coming out your skull. But you can admire them because they did it, you got me, and that's, anyway, so I didn't do as good a job as Ed would have done telling that story. I didn't make you feel like you were there. He would have. What we can do, I think, I don't want to make this a story about bad-mouthing the independent media. That's not what we're doing. But we need to address that there is a distinct difference, and we also have to deal with the limitations and the problem that Ed is observing, and he's noticed very obviously. But he hasn't really understood that, look, you still have to deal with that 90%. So all I would advise Ed to do is once you get, let's say, to YouTube, once you arrive at the place where now you're looking at a subset of what's there, and it's all independent media stuff, obviously, right? So we're talking about Nibiru or something, or other things, but, this type of thing. How about this? How about mind control? There's a great topic. We're talking about mind control and MK Ultra. So once you get into that area, you're already going to be in probably clear of all the mainstream media. You won't find the PBS special on MK Ultra or the CNN Anderson Cooper 360 episode on MK Ultra. Or maybe you can, but if you just remember, keep that out of the equation. But what's left? There's going to be tens of thousands of videos if we're talking about YouTube. And what you need to do is you need to, at that point in time, assume that 90% of it is going to be crap. And also because of the, let's say, creative tweaking done at YouTube and the creative algorithms that are in play. I've found this is my estimation of what it is. When they have targeted someone who they find is on target and they don't like the material, but because of the nature of the free speech we are supposedly having here in America and within YouTube as well, they can't just blatantly throttle you. What they do is they throttle you to a degree, but it's across the spectrum. So in other words, it's not just in one area or one person gets a little more than another. I think they just basically, they put you on the list to be throttled. So I imagine that every statistic across the board, from view time to viewers, all of the other various statistics in that analytics panel that you find if you're a YouTube producer, and if you can understand what we're talking about here, just relating to the popularity and interest level, just what those stats are, you'll find that it's probably 1/10 of what it should be. 1/10 of what it should be, not 1/10 of what someone else has done who's not on target, who isn't on that list, but about 1/10. So digging through all of that material, you'll find that let's say a video has only 1,900 views, and another video by a mainstream, let's say someone in the 90% may have 9 million views. You understand? 1,900, 9 million. That's what we're dealing with. So don't watch the one that has 9 million views, Ed. That's not going to get you anything. It's not even worth looking at. I can assure you that. It's not worth looking at. Just walk away. And if anything, it's something that's just basically culled from mainstream. Somebody who went and carefully extracted the tiny clips of information that they obtained from mainstream sources. Or let's just say they picked it up on George Noory land, right? And they found all of the various clips of people calling in or on the show who were saying, I've been to other planets and I was a warrior I killed Lincoln, all of this. You'll find that those people, they'll have 9 million views. It's not worth looking at. You know what? Now that I think about it, it might be a valuable exercise, a worthwhile exercise for us to take a field trip for just a minute here. We'll take a podcast/radio program field trip together. And by that I mean, let's go to YouTube and let's log in without logging in. In other words, let's visit YouTube without any login whatsoever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new window. Oops, hold on. Back up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up what's called, I'm in a Firefox, so I'm going to open what's called a new private window. There we go. Now hopefully this won't have any connection to, let's see. You're browsing privately, no history, no searches, no cookies, no temporary files. But it does keep my bookmarks, but it doesn't matter. We're going to go to YouTube. No, not YouPorn, YouTube. There we go. Okay, youtube.com. Now, let me go back to, I'm going to just go back to 100% screen size here. All right, so we have what's trending. Okay, live. Police outside Chris Brown's home. Allegedly. Wait, no, hold on. Allegedly threatened woman with gun. Well, that's out what, in Phoenix, apparently? Now, who's Chris Brown? Because I don't know. And Phoenix, I'm in Kentucky, but, hey, and did something happen? Well, it's trending. It's just trending. Ooh, Drake, whom I don't know who that is, presents Rihanna. I don't know who that is, with Vanguard Award. I don't know what that is. On the 2016 Video Music Awards. Wow, that's great. How about this? Ariana Grande. Now, I do know kind of who that is because she's this cute Hispanic-looking girl, right? Side to Side, live from the 2016 MTV VMAs. Oh, I'm going a little bit dyslexic. It's making me dyslexic looking at this. That ought to tell you something. Ooh, how to make Dippin' Dots with liquid nitrogen? That sounds like a fun thing. We should do that. We should all do it. Oh, here's one. The Chainsmokers. Closer. Live from and that has 3.2 million views. It was, it was from a day ago. So over 3 million views in one day. Okay, now we'll go down to the next. Oh, it's the Oprah Network is a recommended channel. They're recommending it. Absolutely. And that's, how Fergie overcame her crystal meth addiction. I don't know who Fergie is. Are we talking about Fergie from Britain? I don't think so. It must be a different Fergie. Wow. And then we got sports highlights. Oh, then movie trailers. And then then we have another recommended channel. They're recommending a Donald Trump channel. But it's not really Donald Trump's channel. It's just a bunch of stuff relating to Donald Trump. And everything here is either 2 months or 4 months, 3 months old. Oh, here's one that's 4 days old. Oh, Donald Trump's interview with Anderson Cooper, part 1. I note that even the most ridiculous, here's one from Patrick Henry. He's got 6.5 million views from 2 months ago. Here's one from CNN 4 days ago. It's got 310,000 views. Are we getting a little bit better? See, here's the news. This is what we're going to get if we log in and we see mainstream news. We got America's Got Talent. That's newsworthy. The Daily Awe, right? animals are cool. I don't deny that. I love animals. But, hey, game delayed by a sheep running onto the field. I'm not sure if that's really what Ed Opperman, for instance, is finding out there. But you know what? He's getting the alternative news or indie media version of that. And that's what we're dealing with. So what do we have as an alternative to the alternative media? Nothing. What I don't understand is why is it automatically assumed that certain programs, certain individuals, certain institutions or organizations are going to be putting out legitimate news and others are going to be putting out illegitimate news. So what? What's the difference? You get, which is worse? A mainstream media source telling us that we're in a race war, or being told we're in a race war with Nibiru, the citizens or the beings from Nibiru in alternative media. Do you see where I'm coming from? There's really no comparison, because in mainstream media, everyone's being hit with it. Millions of people are being impacted by it. But in our tiny little microcosm, our little subset of the media available online, we're just affected in that very small way, in a small percentage of people, and it's not as big a deal. And we can put up with it. We're not compensated for this. Look, I'm not Anderson Cooper. Even Amy Goodman, I'm not sure if you know this, but Amy Goodman makes $9 million a year being the host of Democracy Now! And that's the day, when I learned that was the day I stopped watching that program. Not that I've been watching it incessantly or anything. I just decided that was it. That was the trigger point where, forget it. I'm done with that. If you're making $9 million a year, you better be doing a whole hell of a lot of activism. Now, what kind of causes is she donating to? Donating to the transgendered America causes and the Agenda 21, please don't ride your bike except on the designated backyard neighborhood paths project. You know what I'm saying? So we got to keep in mind that we're dealing with a very difficult scenario here in America where, yes, they do allow us the internet, and I'm not exactly clear as to why. I have my theories about that, but it's there and we can use it. Now they of course throttle us, as I've described, as I mentioned. At least I've seen some evidence of that. But what's left? We have the mainstream, and the mainstream is overpowering us. And that's why Fix the Media exists, well, largely, because we can't really tell anybody anything truthful without the filter being in place that will essentially eliminate our message or diminish or throttle it to the extent that it doesn't affect anyone, doesn't reach anyone's ears. And we need to get a little bit, well, I think fundamentally we need to return the media to the people. But more importantly, I think, or at least equally as important, to fix the media to IMS, to myself, and to many others, and some of you listening, we need to get our message out. We need to have the truth be heard. Like, for instance, we're in this political battle between Trump and Hillary, and yet none of it matters. None of it's real. All of it's a lie. What we know of Trump mostly is a lie. I think Trump is not necessarily inherently evil. I don't think he's driven like Hillary is. I think in some ways there's a chance that it's possible that he may actually be under the thumb of the state. They may have something on the guy, and it's something that he doesn't want to have come public. And so he's playing this game with these guys and taking it all the way, because if he weren't to take it all the way, he might be facing some serious consequences. So he's there partly out of interest in doing the right thing, partly out of interest in protecting himself, and partly because of his drive. But Hillary Clinton is she's 100% driven to, with both the interest in the power and the interest in continuing her criminal behavior. That seems to be a certainty. I also have another thing I want to talk about. I'm going to log out of here. I can't have this up on my screen anymore. It's driving me crazy. Anyway, I want to talk about something. This comes courtesy of one of the persons I subscribe to on Google+, Thomas Shaughnessy. Thomas Shaughnessy reminded me of a gentleman by the name of James Wesley Howell. If you don't know who James Wesley Howell is, let me just tell you, he's connected to, by his own admission, the Pulse nightclub shooting. Let me explain. This was about, it was, when was this? Back on June 12th, okay? On June 12th, he was arrested. Now, the official account goes like this. Suspicious character is found snooping in people's houses. He's peeking in their windows and stuff, right? So he's a peeping Tom. It's a peeping Tom call. Totally makes sense, right? It's been 2.5 months since then. It's still a peeping Tom situation. Hey, they picked him up. But the twist was, in his car, he had a whole bunch of stuff. He had something that's called shock shot explosive mix. It's not like he had the two components mixed together yet, but there were the two components needed to make this shock shot stuff, okay? He also had, an Anderson Manufacturing AM-115 223 round high velocity round rifle, and he had one round in the chamber and another 30-round magazine attached to it, and another 30-round magazine was taped to the rifles. He was ready to do the quick change, and he also had a 30-06 bolt-action rifle with a round in the chamber, and a 22 caliber Ruger semi-automatic pistol. They described it as a mass-murdering commando assassin's arsenal. Now, that's typically, I find most peeping Toms tend to have that, they usually have a little bit of, explosive material, a little bit, they have at least a high caliber, at least they have an AR type rifle, and maybe a 30-06 or so, a few pistols. Yeah, that's a typical scenario to find that type of thing. Now, let me tell you, though, what's going on behind the scenes. And this is reported by a couple of outfits, but it actually was also reported by G. Edward Griffin, whom I still think is a solid character. I don't think he's sold out. If anyone, it's guys like, Jeff Rentz and Gordon Duff and Michael Rivera who have nothing to say about this, or American Free Press. The website that I found it from was called letsgetoffthebs.com. Letsgetoffthebs.com. Check that site out. You'll be very interested. So anyway, that's where I found this story. And here's what happened. According to them, James Wesley Howell found out on the early morning of June 12th. This would have been the morning after the Pulse nightclub shooting, or really the very morning of, because it happened in the late to early morning hours. Okay, so he finds out that this James Wesley Howell character finds out that the guy out in Orlando was killed. And he knows it's a problem because he claims to have been trained have trained with the guy out in, and I've forgotten his name, so just bear with me here, but you'll have to Omar Mateen, that's right, Omar Mateen, as I recall. So out in Orlando, Omar Mateen gets killed. This James Wesley Howell guy goes, hey, wait a minute. That's not a good sign, because he's apparently waiting to hear from his handler on what to do next. And he realizes, hold on, I was training with Omar Mateen by the CIA at a camp in Virginia on committing these terror events, but I was told that I would only be used as there would be no actual killings, blah, blah, blah. The story they told him apparently was different. He felt that he was going to be patsied. So he thought, well, what can I do? So he called now this is out on the West Coast, where he's located, and it doesn't matter. He calls the Santa Monica police where he's at, and he says, please come and get me and protect me from the CIA. So he thought he was going to be killed by the CIA, or at least patsied by them and killed by them, when he was apparently going to bomb he's going to be pretending, somehow hoaxing a bomb scenario at the gay pride parade out there in Santa Monica or nearabouts, on the West Coast later that day or the following day. I'm not sure the time frame of that, but at any rate, you get the sense of what's going on here. Now, it's been 2.5 months. Has anyone reported this? Well, certainly the mainstream media isn't going to report it, but I am wondering about some of these other sources. So we've got independent media here that is certainly capable of reporting what is an obvious case. And if we are to believe this guy, and I tend to believe him, in other words, if I had to put my money on it, I'd put my money on James Wesley, guy with the middle name Howell, as he was going to be the next, he was going to have bombed the gay pride parade. And think about it. What a setback for these guys. Because now they don't have their patsy. And apparently there were 5 individuals, and upon interviewing this guy, which they did, listen to this. This website, getoffthebs.com, claims that they have one of their editors there is also a lawyer. So they were able to get a jailhouse interview with, or visitation with this James Wesley Howell character under the premise that they were offering their legal services as defense attorneys for him. So they were able to get in there, and they clarified some things. And he said, yes, I was trained with 5 other individuals, or maybe he was the 5th individual. Omar Mateen was one of them. There was another girl. And if you recall, there's a story that Omar was communicating with a girl who had a backpack on. And I'm not sure if it ever came out what the contents of the backpack was or what it contained. But that is also that also correlates well with the story out there. Now, did Omar Mateen get killed, and were there any killings? Were there actually any people killed in Orlando? Well, let me just say this. I did see some footage and some very good analysis, and this actually was by somebody who had a great documentary on the Boston bombing. And I don't, off the top of my head, have that channel, but before this is over, before this episode's out, I'll try to make sure, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes below. But so keep that in mind if you don't hear it mentioned here on the show. This gentleman's channel is, I believe the only thing he's done, or maybe just one of a couple or a few things that he's put out, has been a documentary on the Boston bombing fiasco. And it was, I think, 3 hours or near 3 hours in length, and it is fantastic. But part of it toward the end is he does get into a few other events and describes a few scenarios and some evidence that he came across. And he did some looking into this Pulse nightclub thing. And he noted and shows evidence of, and he does a very good job. He's very meticulous about that. He showed evidence that the people leaving, or rather these wounded individuals being carried, that were filmed by the media early that morning, so it was just still dark out. They were all being carried in the direction of the nightclub. They were being carried toward the nightclub from like 100 yards away. So all these people were emerging, being carried by others. And then, of course, as you may have seen already at one point, and if you haven't, it's quite funny to watch. You see 2 guys carrying a third person, a gentleman who appears to be wounded. And then once they get far enough down the road, they assume the media has stopped filming them. They stop, let the guy down, and they all kind of chuckle. And then they look back, oh, crap, But at that point, it's kind of like the jig is up, guys. The cat is out of the bag. The gay cat is out of the gay nightclub shooting bag. And, of course, the nightclub is what? It's now just a memorial. I'm sure they're going to tear it down, right? They'll tear it down, but they assure us they're going to put an Arby's up there to commemorate the horrible. No, they'll probably erect a Freedom Tower or something there. But at any rate, do you see where I'm coming from about the independent media? You can't always rely upon every single indie media individual. Some are just going to completely shirk their duties and hide from something as important a story as this is, and yet. How are we to deal with it? Well, we deal with it by having some discernment. Amongst the mainstream media, that there's nothing that you can do with that. You just have to take that material and throw it away. Just don't even pay any attention to it whatsoever. That's probably the best, I think, the knee-jerk reaction should be that. However, when it comes to independent media, what do you do there? Well, that's going to require some discernment, because some of that material is good. I would like to think that my material is good. I would like to think that what IMS produces is good. I would like to think of what a lot of what is being put out by the individuals who host programs on the Awake Radio Network here is good material. And certainly Ed Opperman's material is good. And he has a lot of guests, and a lot of his guests, by extension, I would say they are also very good. And he's a guy with discernment. He knows Ted Gunderson's a whack job. He knows Ted Gunderson is let's put it this way. Ted Gunderson was the section chief of the FBI for the whole, Los Angeles County for over a decade. And then somehow he has change of heart? And now he's a good guy. He's a whistleblower. I think it's just a matter of he retired from being, in that role. And then he went on to do this, kind of extracurricular retirement job, which is, to mislead everyone. And it's sad because he was dealing with some real good stuff. And he was in areas in which, he delved into areas like the satanic stuff, the, child abuse stuff. I think it's true that all the satanic stuff, not all of it, but much of it, is just military intelligence disinfo intended to misdirect us. I think, but it's a very deliberate thing. Not that the evils aren't happening, not that the rapes of children is not occurring. That's all true. There may even be ritualized murders, but I don't think we're talking about Satanism here. I think a lot of that, if not all of it, in fact, all the key points, is crap. Like Crowley. Everyone loves Crowley, and they think of him as, or they hate Crowley, and they think of him as this demonic person, and he was probably a pretty bad character, that's for sure. But the first time, go back and read the history, and you find how he emerged on the scene was as a British intelligence agent. Now, how do you go from being a British intelligence agent to being a double agent to being possibly a triple agent to now he's some kind of, now he's channeling spirits? Is that the logical progression? Or are we just talking about more frickin' disinformation? It angers me that people don't want to look to find the deeper truth. And this is something I think that goes back to what Ed has experienced. And that is that much of these folks, they'll dig and dig and dig, and he'll respect a lot of these folks, but they won't have used the common sense. Maybe it's the street smarts that they need to understand that this is not simple. These matters are not simple. There is a lot of disinformation, and a lot of it is not really nefarious disinfo that's organized. Some of it is just the tendency that people have to follow. It's like Judy Wood. Judy Wood, I think, is great. Her information's great. But you take away 9/11 and you turn it into a post-prosecution scenario, and Judy Wood will fall apart because there's nothing left for her to do. Her job will have been done. Or she won't be creative enough or open-minded enough or positive thinking enough to understand that there's a life after the 9/11 truth scenario. Once it becomes mainstream knowledge, once people understand it for what it is, and we know who did it and why they did it, if we still don't know how, then Judy can fill in those gaps for us. Then she can elaborate and to further clarify and get into the nitty-gritty and be proven right on some of her information, I'm sure. But for her to actually fight the interests like I have and just going and pursuing the who and the why, do I really need to know exactly how the high technology worked that brought down the Twin Towers? No, I don't need to know that. If I happen to, I'm not discouraging others from pursuing it. I'm just saying that, look, if we can have a faster resolution by going through some other channel or following another path, then let's do that. Follow me? I tell you what, let's do this. Let's take a commercial. We are at the middle of the show, but and this is, again, another 90-second commercial. We are definitely interested in people contacting us if they'd like to run an ad on the program. We could certainly use the funding. We're not exactly sure how we're going to do organizational funding for IMS, but Fix the Media, the podcast/radio show has interest in funding, and we are interested in advertisers. It's something as brief as a 30-second or a 1-minute shot. 30 seconds is ideal, but we're very interested in trying to grow the show and also getting some support. And knowing that we've got those listeners out there. So if you are a listener and you've also got something that you could hawk on the program or some kind of something to advertise, be it a movement, be it a program of your own, be it a product, a service, anything that you think would be a good fit. It's got to be a good fit. We're not going to approve anything that's funky. I'll tell you that. We're not going to have a George Soros-funded operation advertising on our program, but I think you guys can figure that out. That's pretty automatic. Anyway, we will take a short break, about 90 seconds, and we'll be right back with Fix the Media on the Awake Radio Network. This is Peter Klein, your host. We'll be right back. Thank you for listening to Fix the Media on the Awake Radio Network, or one of its rebroadcast partners, like the On Air Radio Network. The Awake Radio Network can be found by visiting awakeradio.us. Fix the Media is an independent media solidarity production. IMS can be found on the web at mediasolidarity.com. Fix the Media can be found on the web at fixthemedia.com. Fix the Media isn't just a radio show or podcast. It's also an IMS project that seeks to expose and curb media corruption. Fix the Media is just beginning to take shape and eventually will become a movement that will restore trust in the media by returning it to the people. You are the hero in your own story, and together we are the heroes that will end the era of media corruption. You can play a part in this historical event by simply visiting fixthemedia.com and following along as the project unfolds. You know it, we know it. The media is corrupt, and it's up to us to change that. During the break, I forgot all about kissing, but I just remembered. Oh, Lord. Lord, help me now. I'm a monster. Welcome back to Fix the Media. I'm your host, Peter Klein, and I'm having a minor breakdown for your pure listening pleasure. Now, actually, during the break, I also remembered the name of the channel that did such an incredible Boston bombing documentary. The name of the channel is New Liberty Times. New Liberty Times. So either now or right after the show, go to YouTube and search New Liberty Times and subscribe, and then watch all 3 hours of that documentary. Call all of your superhero team members together before you do. Oh, you don't have a team of superhero collaborators? Well, just forget it then. Kidding. Do it. At least have your dog watch it with you. And I'm not talking about your husband. Also, how many of you went to wolvesandsheeple.com to start getting acquainted with the work of Winston Smith? Good. That's good to hear. I'm more convinced than before that Winston has his head in the right place, on his shoulders. Oh, and while we're on, kind of on the topic of the book 1984, maybe I should take a moment and tell you a few key points about that book. First, the author isn't George Orwell. It's Eric Blair. Well, George Orwell is just Eric Blair's pseudonym. Also, the book isn't called 1984. It's called 1949, or at least that was its original title. Isn't this fun? I can ruin all of your interests and preconceived ideas. How about we stop there, though? I want everyone to say a prayer for my cat Hoax. When I got Hoax about a year ago, he was a showroom cat. I've said this before. He was a showroom cat. Now, I didn't intend on going down to the Humane Society and picking a showroom cat. I just figured I'd walk into their little cat room, and point at the first cage I saw and say, there you go, you're coming home with me. And that's what they did. And they said, hey, he's a stray. He's an 8-year-old tabby. They called him Gallivant. So I said, no, his name is Hoax. You stupid idiots. And anyway, they had some kind of deal, so it wound up being a total of $9. Right? Now, I should have known that there was some kind of bum's rush going on. Something was wrong about that whole affair. But I figured, hey, they're selling cats to all these other people here. Why would it be any different in my case? Well, it really wasn't. Now, I don't know what the difference is when you're a stray versus you're an owner, you're abandoned by, I don't know what it's called. They've got some term. I used to volunteer down there, so that I should probably know the term. I've blocked it all out. Anyway, here's the deal. About 2 months after I get him, I notice, hey, wow, you've got some pretty nice cheekbones there, mister. Well, maybe a month after. But what I wasn't realizing at the time when I noticed it is I was just looking at one of his cheekbones. Had I been looking at him straight on and noticed his cheekbone, I would have went, oh, wow, one of your cheekbones is a lot bigger than the other. And that was the beginning of her, I took him down and they said, yeah, he's got an inoperable cancer. Yeah, it's the kind that we can operate on him, but it's just going to kill him within a month or so. And that's with the chemo and the radiation, so the whole thing. And, so you'd be out like 10 grand too. You don't mind doing that. And my thing was, well, if I was out 10 grand, that's one thing. But if I'm out a cat after a month, when here it is a year later, but he's on his final days. He's got this, big tumor on his face. He went blind in one eye after 2 months. And that was just because the thing grew to encompass. It grew out of his eye socket and up over his eyeball. So he has an eyeball that's back there and it's working just fine probably. Well, I don't know about now. But it invaded his sinuses, and so now he sounds like a motorboat when you see him. If he comes in here, he may start honking. And you'll know you won't have to wonder. You won't mistake that sound he makes. So I'm gonna put him down probably tomorrow or the next day. I have a friend that put down their dog, the other day too. And so it's just, we're just animal killers. We just love putting our pets to, sending them to the gallows. I had to do this with my other pet. Cat, Abby. Flabby. I used to call her Flabby. But anyway, it is what it is. So I just hope he hangs on just a little bit longer so we can take care of this business at hand. And I'm now working full time at Macy's. Yeah, I work at Macy's. And I was stocking Macy's Christmas crap. Christmas merchandise the other day, and I realized, oh yeah, I remembered. Macy's invented Christmas. I totally had forgotten about that. And, I mentioned it to a couple coworkers and they looked at me like, huh? No. They just kind of like smirked and pretended maybe not to hear. I think one of them did. And in casual, we were just talking casually and they were asking about, so are you familiar with this? I said, yeah, I used to manage an Aeropostale store before and a Pacific Sunwear for that matter. And they looked at me like, huh? Yeah. They gave me that look again. I think they're going to blow me out of there. There's just no way. It's just not a good fit, if you know what I mean. And I'm trying to just keep to myself and not have anything, let's say, overly humorous to say. Despite the fact that I noticed that in the pregnancy department, they had skinny jeans for pregnant women. Do you see where that's funny? They didn't find it funny at all. In fact, the manager there said, boy, you're just learning things every day, aren't you here, Peter? Which was some kind of weird, like passive aggressive, like, hey, keep it to yourself, buddy. We don't want to hear your observational humor. That's not for, hey, you're not supposed to observe anything. Hey, be careful. You might learn something. That's the last thing they want me to do is learn something. Do you think I could bring Macy's down? Just one guy? Could I bring Macy's down? I probably could. When I did the training, a lot of that training was about, like a shooter incident. Like what to do in case a shooter comes. What to do if you see James Holmes running around with bat wings. And, so that was interesting, I have to admit. And now, to be honest, it's a little weird because then the first thing they want to do is they want to give you a box cutter. They're like, you want to learn how to use the box cutter now, huh? Don't you? Yeah, I'm the box cutter maestro. It's just all a big, it's great. I love it. Anyway, part of the plan with this Fix the Media project, And just to remind everyone, Fix the Media, this program is actually produced by IMS, Independent Media Solidarity, of which I am a co-founder. And our project currently, or at least the priority project, is Fix the Media. It's bigger and bolder and grander than just this program, but part of that overall project involved us laying the groundwork, the foundation for some sub-projects, and they would all be relating to the media, the mainstream media's abuses, and also their crimes. And in one case, and somebody just brought this up, I think the guy, I'm gonna have to guess again, I'm horrible with names, and these are all pseudonym type YouTube channel handles and stuff anyway, but this guy, Pongo Houston, I think was the name of the character, he reminded me about the media actually acting, well, society at large being kind of like godparents, in a way, for the nation. And so what are they doing? What does the media do to represent the mother and the father figures, that role in our society, especially the male figure, right? Because we have that problem, we know, especially in the black community, where the fathers are just not there. They're absentee fathers, right? So how does the media rectify this? Well, what do you do? And so he suggested this information, and I remembered, oh yeah, well, that's one of our big projects. So coming up, we're going to be doing a whole show devoted to how the media's portrayal of men and especially fathers. Can you imagine? How are we going to do that in an hour? I could do a whole hour on just Al Bundy alone. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on. Or Homer Simpson. Now, the Simpsons, I have my own personal view of. I admire the Simpsons. I think what happened is they had such incredible success on their first or two, maybe the first couple seasons, that they just turned around and went to the network and said, hey, guess what? We're going to just deliver you the show and you're going to like it. And they said, all right, fair enough. You guys seem to know what you're doing. And they let them have free reign. And I do believe that, because if you look very carefully, there's nothing going on with these guys. These guys badmouth the media day in and day out. Kent Brockman is about the seediest character on the whole show. Okay? And the media executives, hell, there's one episode in which the media executives are meeting in the tower of this crazy looking evil building, and they're talking about what the next big media hoax is going to be, and they decide it's going to be some kind of viral thing. It turns out it was kitty cat flu or something they come up with, but they actually inject a man and they just jam him in the neck with a needle, and he doesn't look like he's pleased to be a participant in that trial, but at any rate, they got him. And it's very interesting how they portray the media the way they do, real negative. But let's just look at it fundamentally. I think it was just a consequence of the show needing to be funny and interesting. So that's why the characters are developed the way they were. So we have Lisa and Bart, and then we have Marge and Homer. But if we divide it along the gender roles, you've got your Homer and Bart. Bart is an idiot. They've already shown us that Bart is going to die in a motorcycle stunt at age 15 or something, right? Whenever of course, he's always Ted. In 26 years, he remains 10 years of age, I believe. But you get the point. At age 15, he's going to die. So we're supposed to speculate on what would happen to Bart. And that's the general character that he portrays, as someone who's just going to die at age 15. Well, then there's Homer. Homer's just a goofy, he just kind of goes along with the program. Any slight pressure. He's very suggestible, right? So he's a very suggestible, kind of an oaf character. He's funny, and so is Bart. Then there's Marge. Now, Marge is a stay-at-home mom. That's true. So that's not really, see, that goes to show you right there, they're not really going by, they're not following the exact plan as it's being portrayed or laid out by those who control the media. But at any rate, that's the way we have the mother character. She's a stay-at-home, but they ridicule her like crazy. And she is an idiot. In fact, at one point she says, music is none of my business. Music is just none of her business. And it probably isn't. And then there's the character that I absolutely despise. Now, that's the character And I'm talking, of course, about Lisa. That's the character that they want us all to admire. In fact, Lisa, when she was running for, I don't know, class president or something, she actually, one of her leading points was she was going to fluoridate the water fountains. So that should give you a little bit of an idea. And, she's a big proponent of global warming. Of course, that was a few seasons back, but it was still definitely after the point at which we had that, Anglia crap where we all learned that it was just a scam and they were just fudging the numbers any which way they could, and they even openly admit it. But you know how it is. And a lot of those scientists started complaining, hey, you put my name on the list of scientists, concerned about global warming. I never said such a thing. I am completely on the other side of this issue, blah, blah, blah. But Lisa's the one character that we're all supposed to admire and we're all supposed to, follow in her footsteps, because she's the future, right? She's not going to be married. She's not going to have a family. She's going to work outside of the home. These are all the things that we're supposed to think is really great. And by the time, we do that for 2 generations and we're dead. We're just dead. So we'll have, after 2 generations of that, I hope we look around us and we look to those nuclear families and we go and we buy them all gift baskets and say thank you with little thank you cards. Thank you for keeping the species alive. I appreciate that. I realized recently how much I really do miss the past. I miss the nuclear family in a way. I miss when the sun used to be yellow. I mean, it's like who was it? I read something about it was a quote from apparently Robin Williams, and he said it's not so bad being totally alone as it is to be surrounded by people that make you feel alone. You know what I mean? And I think he's right. Now, on the topic of Robin Williams, since I was stupid enough to bring him up, now we got to talk about the conspiracy of Robin Williams. Is he dead and all that stuff? I don't know. He's probably dead. But how they say he died leads us to the conclusion that it was some kind of erotic asphyxiation death, right? And now, here's the thing. Do you know anybody who is into erotic asphyxiation? Now, particularly by themselves. Okay, like, I'm alone, I'm looking to get off, I think I'll choke myself until I pass out or on the verge of passing out. Right? I'll put myself into a headlock with this belt in this door handle or this, whatever device I can rig up. Because that's how nuts I am. I need that plus the Olsen twins in a snuff film just might put me over the edge, right? Okay, but see, has anyone thought to themselves, does that make sense? Is this just another funny way the CIA is killing guys? And then they say, erotic asphyxiation. Can you imagine? Whoever invented that must have really just... Now, I could be crazy. Hey, look, just because I personally don't know anyone who's into that. Hey, I personally don't know anyone that's got like more than 10 like studs and rings and crap in their face. You know what I mean? That's just me. I'm just way behind the times. So this could be one of those things. It could be a case of me just being way behind the times again. Totally missed it. But I was thinking the other day too, here's another one. These are all great. Well, it's like Nixon and the Nixon tapes. Yeah, it's really common for presidents to bug themselves, right? I bug myself in the Oval Office all the time. So whenever I'm talking about Bohemian Grove, or as I like to call it, the faggiest bleeping place on the planet, right? I like to make sure that that's stored in the historical records for future generations to admire, to be mystified by. Yeah, so to me it seems like the Nixon tapes are just the Nixon Oval Office bugs. That they thought these people are so stupid. Let's just go ahead and say that these are like dictaphone recordings, that they always recorded everything that's said in the White House. Of course, to me, if I had to put money on it, I'd say no, that's not true. That's just not true. Are they doing it today? I'd like to hear a sample of the Obama tapes. Why can't we hear the Obama tapes? Isn't he taping himself? Every fart, right? It's all there. We've got every presidential fart ever in the White House. It's all on tape, if we were to believe the Nixon tapes, right? So sorry, Daniel Ellsberg. I think we got a little bit of a problem here. Woodward and Bernstein. There's a pattern here too, if you haven't noticed. The pattern. We'll just leave it at that. But then I was also thinking the other day about how films, you don't see them doing it as much. For quite a while, though, they were doing this thing where, it would be a dramatic scene in a movie where the killer calls and they've got the police sitting there on the other line. They're like, okay, they both pick up the phone at the same time. And they need to keep them on the line because we got to trace the call. Now, they can bill you for the call in an instant. They can bill you for the call yesterday. But they need you to keep them on the line so they can trace the call, right? Gee, I wonder if they're still going to be playing that angle in today's dramatic film interpretations of reality. The media, they will be tracing the call till our dying breath, literally. Apparently, we can't know who anybody is. We got to trace. You should have kept him on the line a little longer there, Peter. We almost had the call traced. But the billing comes in and it says who made the call, how long the call was. They can triangulate anyway. You know where I'm going with this. It's just a nightmare world we live in, and I miss the past. I miss the past. And maybe that's just me copping out because, hey, I'm human. There were lots of times where I had just wasted time. I got hooked up with friends in my late teens and early 20s who were just, we were bad friends for each other. It was just like a few guys that, it was a friendship based on competition and who could outcool the other guy, What the hell kind of friendship is that? Looking back on it, yeah, I get it. Boys will be boys, but I still have a lot of those same views too. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm going to get blown out of Macy's is because we did our morning meeting the other day and I looked around and it's just a bunch of chicks and a few gay guys. And then there's me and the dork dude who works in the loading bay or whatever, that nobody speaks to. And it's like, yeah, this is the world we're in. Maybe I should just start making announcements after they're done with their announcements. I'll just announce, hey, guess what? Don't watch the media today, guys, because they're going to be pushing this shooting. Didn't happen. Yeah, I'm out of guns. So if they ever say I shot myself with my own weapon, you'll know that it didn't happen because I don't have any more guns. Yeah, I pawned them all. I was out of money. I ran out of money. I'm still out of money. That's why I'm not putting hoax down. I still need another couple days before I expect to receive any money and can afford to put them down. It costs money to have your cat killed. I should just call PETA. I think PETA would be more, there'd probably be like 3 PETA vans outside my apartment within 10 minutes. They'll probably write me a check so they can go find a good home for him. So we're at the end of the show now. Amazing. Time flies. I miss the past. I miss the beginning of the show, don't you? There was so much more promise. We were going to get a whole lot more done than we did. But I think I shared enough. See, this is how it's going to go. I'm going to have to share this information with you so we can become of like mind, and then you'll be just as frustrated as I am, and then you'll join our Justice League, and we'll go out and be the heroes that we are and fix this world. But we're going to do it with reason, logic. We're going to approach this rationally. We know their game, so we know the last thing you want to do is to play into their game, play into their hands. Right now they're not watching. Yeah, they're so arrogant they're not paying any attention. They don't pay any attention to me. When it finally comes down to it, if we catch them by surprise, they're going to change their policies, I bet. But by then it'll be too late, I hope. And I hope that you hope. Thank you for listening to another episode 3. Now we're just going to start pumping them out. Every week, we're going to do an episode of this program. We're going to do more and more than you can imagine. Trust me on that one. Thanks again. This is Fix the Media, your host Peter Klein, a production of IMS, Independent Media Solidarity. Go to mediasolidarity.com. Thank you to the Awake Radio Network for hosting our program. The Awake Radio Network can be found at awakeradio.us. And Fix the Media's website's almost up, fixthemedia.com. If you go there now, you just get a, hey, coming soon. But we are coming soon. And we'll tell a little more about our project as we unveil it bit by bit going forward, which will begin to kind of flow in a torrent-like fashion soon. So please stay tuned. And don't forget, next week, put it in your calendar, put it in your Palm Pilot,